I titled today's mind map, Intuition, My Guiding Lover. Now, the premise of this conversation is actually this quote here from one of the translations, the Doreel translations of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, in which it states, "The true student will read between the lines and gain wisdom. If the light is in you, the light which is engraved in these tablets will respond." Now, upon deeper introspection, we recognize that there are degrees of understanding. You read a book, whatever book, you take that information, you apply it, and you receive some optimization data. Upon reflection of this optimization data, you gain insights, perspectives, intuition. Perhaps you get a distinct perspective, a distinct way of looking at things, but it feels right. There's a sense of knowingness, a sixth sense, we could call it. You go and apply what you have learned, and you produce success. Now you go back to that same book, and you read it again, and it starts to appear differently. Some of the information that was there, which was always there, now stands out. Certain things are understood to a deeper degree. You have gained reference experience. New information, or what was already there but stands out, we could say, is kept into consideration, and we repeat the process again. You go and apply it. And again, the cycle repeats, and you go back to the book, and the information looks a little different, or perhaps radically different. This would represent the changes in consciousness. Now, there's a quote here from The Law of One Material, in which they state, "There is the same difference between love/light and light/love as there is between teach/learn and learn/teaching. Love, light, is the enabler, the power, the energy giver. Light, love, is the manifestation which occurs when light has been impressed with love." Now, when it comes to intuition, upon reflecting back on my own reference experience all throughout this journey, and having thousands of conversations about the topic of intuition, there seems to be one commonality, and that is love. The question becomes, what do we really want? And what we really want are representations of love. And the outer aspects of life, or the five sensory experience, we can call this personal experience, reveals the degree in which we love inside. Representative in our friends, family, relationships, profession, different aspects of our life. And so what I recognize is that intuition guides us from within to what we truly love. Intuition also guides us to bringing conscious awareness to what we are unconsciously saying "I am" to. Now, in the Edinburgh Lectures, he says the following: "The best guide is the knowledge that comes from personal experience, which gradually leads to the acquisition of a sort of inward sense of touch that enables us to distinguish the true from the false, and which appears to grow with the sincere desire for truth and with the recognition of the Spirit as its source. The only general principles the writer can deduce from his own experience are that when, in spite of all appearances pointing in the direction of a certain line of conduct, there is still a persistent feeling that it should not be followed. In the majority of instances, it will be found that the argument of the objective mind, however correct on the facts objectively known, was deficient from ignorance of facts which could not be objectively known at the time, but which were known to the intuitive faculty. Now, the way I relate to this is I say, and we've been discussing it all throughout our videos, we can look at this five-sensory experience and assume that what is here in this five-sensory experience is all that exists. However, what we have been encouraging is to go into the infinite world within and discover new ideas, new visions, inspiration, etc., and allow those to creatively express in our arts, in our innovation, in our relationships, and other aspects of life. In other words, does a person really want to look around to see what others are doing and say, that's how I want to live? Certainly, we can be inspired by others. And what I found, and what I also suggest, is to go within and ask yourself, what do you really want? What do you truly desire? And allow yourself to experience that. That which we commit in imagination is revealed. So one question is, what do we imagine? If part of this journey is a higher degree of appreciation for consciousness and love, then what we want to imagine is what we love. And if a person does not know, feeling guides them to what they love, as Steve Jobs said in his commencement speech. Follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you want to become. What does the heart desire? Sometimes a person knows consciously, they can imagine it, or they can connect to the feeling of ecstatic, because as I had mentioned in our Neville Goddard discussion, which I'll put a link in the description too, I have found that the feeling of ecstatic represents itself as the outer aspects of life, relationships, clients, vendors, team members in my business, life experiences, that which I truly desire. I know. Now, it took me a while to bring myself to this realization, and I find that I am understanding this more so each day, as we discussed in the start of the video. And I'm also having conversations with other individuals, because we recognize in our recent conversations that people show up to reveal the thinking within ourselves. They're saying the same things, although they might be saying it differently. And to the degree that we have reconciled within ourselves, we will understand them. And so let's go back to that feeling, that intuitive feeling he spoke of. He says, another principle is that our very first impression or feeling on any subject is generally correct. And he says, before the objective mind has begun to argue on the subject, it is like the surface of a smooth lake which clearly reflects the light from above. But as soon as it begins to argue from the outside appearances, these also throw their reflections upon its surface, so that the original image becomes blurred and is no longer recognizable. Now, let's refer back to this diagram here, which we referred to in our discussion when we spoke of You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza, which I'll link in the description. Here is an image of a mind. On the top, we've got the conscious mind, and then we've got the subconscious mind. And within our subconscious mind, we've got skills, habits, emotional reactions, behaviors, conditioned responses, associative memories, routines, thoughts, feelings, attitudes, beliefs, perceptions. That's what we are subconsciously saying I am too. And this is why I constantly recommend, as I've done for myself and others, upon applying the information, to understand these thinking patterns based on what we react to on our day-to-day experience. This is referred to as the subconscious mind work. And again, I'll recommend watching my almost 2-hour discussion I did on The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. See, overthinking and overanalyzing seems to create a disharmonious relationship between the conscious and the subconscious. What we want is consciously to imagine what we desire, which is from the perspective of love, in relation to intuition, which stimulates a vision, ideas, or certain ways of, for example, to apply this on the entrepreneurial journey. You have a conversation with someone, and it's a flow-based, lighthearted conversation, a mastermind. And there is no overthinking, overanalyzing, rather a relationship with each individual between the conscious and the subconscious, flow-based conversation. People usually tend to be in alpha state during these conversations, alpha brainwave frequency. And what ends up happening is because while we're in that state of mind, the overthinking, the overanalyzing, the doubt-based and any restrictive-based thinking patterns no longer seem to be there. And we see things for how they truly are. And we recognize things to be in harmony and in contribution to our goals, our visions, our definite chief aims, mutually so, between the individuals. And then all of a sudden, through, let's say, challenges, or we could say perceived challenges that are brought up in the conversation, solutions are found. Innovative ideas. Person knows how to resolve operational challenges in their business. They know how to increase their revenues, reduce expenses, find additional revenue sources. Creative ways of working with the relationships, assets, resources, and opportunities that were always there as we go back here. The true student will read between the lines and gain wisdom. If the light is in you, and the light is in you, the only question is, what degree of awareness are we applying to that particular point in time? The light which is engraved in these tablets will respond. And it's the same thing. And what we find is intuitively so. The challenges get resolved, sometimes automatically so. Sometimes we get the ideas, we apply the ideas. Now, I want to further encourage this because what we're really tapping into is what Rudolf Steiner is referring to right here. According to him, in earlier periods, and we can go back all the way to the origins of the Emerald Tablets, people were capable of direct spiritual perceptions or clairvoyance, but not yet of rational thinking, or we could say our standard for what we consider to be rational thinking, our own interpretations in which we say this is rational thinking, which can be helpful. However, we want to, as we're working with intuition, to recognize that we can go to a deeper place from the perspective of light love and be able to find the intuitive idea, vision, inspiration, and live from those perspectives. Allow those perspectives to express. Body is an expression of mind. Words are an expression of mind. Everything is an expression of mind, and we allow from the premise, the state of mind of ecstatic, which is love light. And so he proposes that humanity has now the task of synthesizing the rational and contemplative spiritual components of cognition, whereby spiritual perception would be awakened through intensifying thinking. Now, we can look at this as thinking accurately. Sometimes I refer to this throughout my videos, accurate thinking. Accurate thinking. Now let's look at this for a moment here. Mind. Conscious mind, subconscious mind, a healthy relationship. A person might have a lot of programming that they've identified with that which they unconsciously say, I am too, in which they can benefit from doing the subconscious mind work to let go of those thinking patterns, find the true and accurate thinking patterns within themselves. See, as a person travels on this journey of life, perhaps the impressions of the five sensory experience are excessively interpreted by looking outward for the answers. And while we can gain insights, perspectives from conversations with others, books, videos, etc., some of those answers may or may not be resonant to how we truly are. Or we could say, as we discussed in Tuesday's video, our interpretations in relation to may not be resonant with how we truly are, or they may be resonant with how we truly are. And perhaps a person just blindly believes these things without actual discernment because they really believe that the outer world is all that exists or something like that. And or they have not accepted the level of confidence that already exists within them, that they already possess, to allow them to think for themselves. Could be whatever reason, perceptions, beliefs, attitude, this and that, which they'll discover these thinking patterns as they do the subconscious mind work, which is simply just reflecting upon your day-to-day experience and saying, in relation to these experiences in which I don't desire, why is it that I am experiencing them repeatedly? What within me is expressing itself to be understood? As we talked about last week, and I'll put a link in the description to the video, I don't see fear as a problem. Fear is something for me to understand, to befriend, to fall in love with or make peace with the thinking patterns, so then I can see things for how they truly are. Then I can say, wait a second, fear is bringing to the surface. It's actually helping me understand myself. I recommend watching that video in relation to the hero's journey. Put a link in the description to that video. So as mentioned, some of those answers feel resonant and some do not. But perhaps they believe it all without discernment because they believe that the outer world is all that exists, or they have not accepted the level of confidence that already exists within them, because they're identifying with certain thinking patterns in relation to certain experience, which you can call those reactive in relation to the past, thinking patterns that are disempowering or limiting, or we could simply put it, that which is not intuitively how they are. Whatever the reason may be, at a certain point, they rekindle this connection to the infinite divine world within to reveal the true and accurate interpretations and translations, we could say, of the five sensory experience via intuition. So let's go back here again. In relation to the translation here of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the true student will read between the lines and gain wisdom. So we could say accurate translations of the five sensory experience via intuition. They also realize that there is one truth, and that is love, and love becomes their law, as we reflect upon this. There is the same difference between love, light, and light, love, as there is between teach, learning, and learn, teaching. Love, light is the enabler, the power, the energy giver. Light, love is the manifestation which occurs when light has been impressed with love. Now, I've come to these understandings in relation to my own personal experiences with regards to the different aspects of the journey, people, environment, circumstance, information. And as I had made peace with these attributes within myself, I have a deeper relationship with my intuition. So let's tie this in together to some exercises that are provided by Rudolf Steiner, which can be used to develop this intuition. Number 1, self-control over one's thinking. He says, contemplate any object and concentrate one's thoughts exclusively on this object. It could be the task that you're working on. It could be your project. It could be your art. It could be a conversation that you have with someone. Become so deeply present to what you are doing, as if nothing else exists except that particular experience. Now, what this is doing is it's allowing us to pick up on nuances of perspectives, ideas, which then expands. And as we have mentioned before, we have awareness, as in you're aware of having the conversation, and awareness of to a higher degree the nuances. Practice this. You could do this with a plant. You could sit down with a plant and you could engage in a spiritual conversation with the plant. You can understand it. You'll start to notice, you'll start to feel it communicating with you. That will be the experience. I've experienced this many times. And you'll start to notice certain thoughts, ideas, visions, and even sometimes you might notice, such is the case with a lot of experiences that I have with nature. Nature seems to provide solutions to challenges that we have. Number 2, exercise willpower by choosing a regular time of day or day of the week to practice this. For example, he says watering plants. Or for me, it's the morning routine. I wake up, I read my statements of intent, I take my contrast showers, I have a coffee, I go to the gym, I come back home, I take a shower, I have my breakfast, I meditate for 20 minutes, and then I start my work. That entire sequence, my whole goal is to stay present to it. I get so many ideas. I get so many visions just from that same routine that I do Monday to Friday. What this also helps you do is develop your ability to keep your attention in the direction of what you consciously desire to keep your attention on. What I notice is a higher degree of inner voice conversations and intuitive understanding of the different aspects, five sensory experiences, people, environments, circumstances, information. Number 3, practice equanimity. Foster calm emotional responses. If we're having a conversation with someone and a person wants to emotionally react from the perspective of anger and say something to the person which is not true to how they really are, and so that can be a revelation of a person going into a different state of mind which is not true to how they really want to be and how they really want that interaction to play out. But however, if they're aware of their emotions during the conversation and they understand and they make peace with the emotions that they feel in the conversation, you get better at it with practice. They're able to understand what the person is saying. They're able to read between the lines and really empathetically and compassionately understand the other person, which is also at the same time empathetically and compassionately understanding ourselves. In reference, I recommend watching the video I did on How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I'll put a link in the description to that. And by the way, these are all the things that I have done and continue to do to further build this relationship with intuition. And again, intuition is giving me ideas, insights, perspectives, information from my inner world, from your inner world. It's the same inner world. We're receiving from the same source, all of us. The question is, are we listening to this voice within, or the feeling within, or whatever five sensory experience in imagination, and living from that premise? Number 4, try to see the positive aspects in everything and to make the best out of every situation. Now, we can call this having faith. And perhaps in the earlier stages of the journey, as it was for me, this can be a challenge. You have a conversation with someone, they say something, and I want to see them a certain way, which is not how they truly are. And before I would just do it, and I would behave from the premise of disharmony. And what I've learned in this journey is if I could see what he refers to as positive aspects in the person in relation to the conversation, and I can allow myself to maintain the state of mind of focusing on those attributes in the conversation, the entire nature and the entire person transforms to reflect those thinking patterns. And since those positive aspects are from the perspective of love, we recognize that love really is the law. Number 5, practice being open to new experiences and ideas. Never letting expectations based upon the past close your mind to the lessons of the moment. We can call this childlike spontaneity. Intuition may say, I want to travel now. I want to go somewhere because I feel like going somewhere. And then when you get to that destination, there's someone there or an experience of exactly what it is that you're looking for or the end result, that which you desire to experience. You end up manifesting your vision into reality. The person that you're looking for is there. The opportunity happens to be there. Number 6, find a harmonious, balanced relationship between the above 5 qualities. practicing each regularly and becoming able to move dynamically between them. Now, here's the effect of working with this information. And we're going to further discuss intuition in the upcoming videos. But for now, let's look at this. A harmonious relationship between the conscious and the subconscious mind as a result of making peace with, or we could say falling in love with, certain thinking patterns that we have perhaps identified with in the past, so that in the moment we can go from conscious to subconscious and subconscious back to conscious in the moment while we're in the flow. This is revealed in our creative expressions, in our conversations, in our artistic expression. All of a sudden, a person feels one with the dance, the music, that which they're doing. Body seems to move automatically. And ideally, this is extremely powerful for athletes. Thus, we recognize that intuition guides us to the destination. By the way, these exercises here, which I've been working with for many years, can be applied in different shapes or forms to your day-to-day activities. Reflect upon this. Think about this for a moment. Day-to-day life provides so much opportunity to apply these exercises. And what I would suggest is to sit down and find areas where you can practice this. And as you practice this, observe how you develop a heightened degree of appreciation for nuances, different ways of looking at the five sensory experience. Your confidence, which was always there, will start to express more authentically. Actually, as a matter of fact, you'll find yourself being more expressive in everything that you do. You will live how you truly want to live. And you'll automatically listen to your intuition to a higher degree. So let's reflect upon this part here. The best guide is the knowledge that comes from personal experience, which gradually leads to the acquisition of a sort of inward sense of touch that enables us to distinguish the true from the false, and which appears to grow with the sincere desire for truth and with the recognition of the spirit as its source. And to emphasize, as he had stated, our very first impression or feeling on any subject is generally correct. Before the objective mind has begun to argue, or we could say overthinking patterns and certain thinking patterns that are buried in the subconscious being brought to the surface, begins to overanalyze the situation. We say, I'm going to move in that direction, which perhaps might even have some fear and excitement blended into it. Again, watch that video that I did. And we do the thing and we change. And if we have a lot of challenge doing this, we dedicate some time to do the subconscious mind work, to ease up on that programming. We no longer have to identify with that programming. And a visual example that he gives to articulate, which I just love, he says, before the objective mind has begun to argue on the subject, it is like the surface of a smooth lake, which clearly reflects the light from above. But as soon as it begins to argue from outside appearances, these also throw their reflections upon its surface, and so the original image becomes blurred and is no longer recognizable. See, I've had this experience happen many times in my life, what he's articulating here, and I've decided to commit to and listen to my intuition exclusively, and it has transformed my life. Everything that I do, I've made flow a priority. Business life, personal life, every area of my life. And then when I go back to this information, it starts to make even more sense. And I understand it experientially to a deeper degree. And my trust is that you are already having these same experiences as well. And so let's conclude our discussion today and further encourage these ideas with an autosuggestion. You can say, I recognize that light love, love light, is the same difference. I recognize that the teacher and the students are within and externalize itself as the outer aspects of life, relationships with others, environment, circumstance, etc. Upon reflection, I realize that I know what to do. Intuition guides me, and I find myself automatically, more so every day, honoring and listening to my intuition, which allows me to find the accurate and true information in relation to five sensory experience, which includes perceived sources of information. such as books, trainings, etc., recognizing that the interpretations are formed from within and reflect as the reflections of what I see in that information, thus helping me understand to a deeper degree that the outer is a reflection, that which I say I am too. And as I change that which I say I am too, consciously within, through the relationship that I have between the conscious and the subconscious, it is lightheartedly allowed upon the subconscious mind. And as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, which expresses as the outer aspects of life guided from within via my intuition. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.